Hey guys, welcome to another video in C programming. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at decision making. Now, what is this decision making? Decision making is a programming construct that helps you evaluate an expression. Okay, it helps you decide, or it helps you to evaluate if an expression given is true or false. Now, there are four types of decision making statements in C. The first is the if statement. The second is the if else statement. The third is the else if statement, and the last is the switch statement. So we are going to take it from the top, which is the if statement, and then down to the switch statement. Stay tuned. The if statement. The if statement in C is written like this: if bracket, then the code of blocks that needs to be executed. Here is going to be the expression that is going to be evaluated. So if this expression here returns true, this block of code is going to run. So let's take a simple example on the if statement. We are going to declare a variable called x, and we assign x to be of value 7. Now, inside of this expression, inside of this if statement, we are going to give it an expression to evaluate for us. Like, we are going to tell it to make a decision for us. Okay, so that is what is going to be inside of this brackets. Now, the decision that we want it to make for us is we want to test whether x is less than 8. So if 7 or x is less than 8, this, if it is true, this code is going to run. But if it is false, this block of code here is not going to run, or whatever we are putting here. Let's put this inside of here, and let's write x is less than 8. Okay, so what this is actually telling us is that we are checking if x is less than 8. The decision statement is going to evaluate, or is going to test this condition that we have here. So this condition is called an expression, and is going to be evaluated. It's going to return a Boolean result. So this Boolean result is either true or false. Okay, so if it returns true, if this statement is true, then that means this block of code here, whatever we put inside of this place, is going to run. Okay, but if it is false, this is not going to run. Okay, so let's try and test this code if whether this is true or false. So we save and we compile and run. So you can see x is less than 8. X is 7, and the other expression here is 8. So this returned true. That is why x is less than 8. Let me maximize this font size. Okay, so x is less than 8. So you can see that this print was printed out. Why? Because this is true. Okay, so x here, which is 7, is less than 8. But if we go the other way around, x is greater than 8, which x is 7. Okay, so let's try this, whether it will still print this out for us. So you can see it did not print anything else out for us. So that means this condition here evaluated to be false. So it is a false expression that we passed here. So when it is false, this if statement, this thing in here is not going to be run. Okay, what I want you to take out of this is that any expression that you passed inside of this if statement, if it returns true, if it is true, this anything inside of this curly brackets are going to run. Okay, anything inside of this, they are going to run. But if it goes false, if this returns false, that means anything inside here is not going to be run. Okay, so and that is when we now come up with something we call an else statement. Now let's jump to the else statement. The else statement does the opposite of an if statement. So if the if statement is false, that means the else is going to take up the responsibility of printing or doing anything inside of it. So we put an else statement at the end of the if statement. So you can see how I declared the if statement, and the if statement starts from here and ends here. Okay, it starts from the top and ends here. Why the else statement starts immediately from the if statement and then ends here. So what this is actually telling us is that if this if condition here, this expression here is false, this else is going to run. But if this condition or this expression is true, this if is going to run. Okay, again, if this condition is false, the else is going to run. But if this if is true, this is going to run. So let's do this. Is not. So let's see what is going to happen here right now. So you can see what we got on the screen. X is not less than 8. So before we got nothing on the screen. That means the if statement returned false. When that was done, we did not have this else statement. There was nothing to be done again. That is why it did not print out anything for us. But right now we have an else statement that catches the false results, okay, from this expression. Okay, that is why it's printed this one for us. Why? Because this expression is wrong. Okay, there is no way 7 can be greater than 8. It's not done anyway. Okay, so let's change this expression to be true. So that means 7 is less than 8, which is true. Let's see what is going to be printed out for us. So you can see X is less than 8. So which means this guy was printed out. If this returns true, this block of code is going to run. But if it returns false, this block of code is going to run. So that's for if and else statement. So the next one that we are going to look at is the else if statement. Now the else if statement tests another condition if this if returns false. Okay, so this is how to do it. At the end of the if statement, just go down, put else if, then you now try to test another condition, which is X is greater than 6. Okay, then you now put the code of block that is going to run if it is true. Okay, so here I'm going to put this inside here. So X is greater than 6. Okay, so we are now saying that else if, that means this guy returned false. So if this guy returned false, this expression here or this statement here is going to run. But if the if statement returns true, there's no need of this else if to run, and there's no need of this else to run. Okay, so if this returns false, then it will go to the next condition, okay, which is else if. Is testing the expression whether X is greater than 6. So if this is true, then this is going to be printed out. The x is greater than 6 is going to be printed out. But if it is false, this else is going to be printed out. Now, if this is true, there's no need of this going down to the else statement to print again, because it has met a condition that is true. It will just stop there. Okay, so this is how to include an else if condition or else if statement in your code. Now let me come again, starting from the beginning. Now we are trying to test a condition whether it is true or false. So we now set the value of x to be 7. Okay, so we now say that now this if statement, if it returns true, okay, if this expression evaluates to true, then this block of code for the if statement should run, and it will stop. It will run and stop. It will not go down to the else if statement and the else. No, it will just stop here if it is true. But if this if statement is false, then it has the chance to go down to this else if to test whether this expression here is false or true. Now, if this is true, it will stop here. It will just run and stop. Okay, it will not go down to this else statement. No, there's no need of it going down to the else statement unless this condition here is false. So if this condition here is false, then the else statement is going to be printed out. So let's run this to see what will be printed out on the screen for us. So we have this x is less than 8. Let's go and see which statement or which code of block has it. X is less than 8. This is it, the if statement. If this printed out, that means this is true. This condition here is true. Yes, which means x is less than 8. So it printed out this and stop. So let's go and change this to be false. Or let's put equal to. So there's no way x is equal to 8. So x is 7. There's no way 7 is equal to 8. So definitely this is going to be false. Now when this is false, it will go to this else if statement. Let's run. So you can see here x is greater than 6. So x is 7 and is greater than 6. So you can see that this guy was jumped because it returned false, and this else if was printed out. Why? Because this returned true. So it printed out this and stopped. It didn't go down to the else statement. So that means if this else if statement is true, there's no need of it going down. So it will just print whatever that you put inside of this block and then stops, because this condition has met its requirements. Now let's change this to be false. So this is false and this will be false, and you'll see how this else will be printed out for us. So you can see here x is not less than 8. X is not less than 8. You can see the else statement printed out. Why? Because this if statement returned false, this else if statement returned false, and that is why it's printed out this else statement. So if either of this if statement or this else if statement returns true, there is no need of this else statement running. Okay, so that is the brief introduction or explanation on if else and else statements. Now there's another one that they call nested if statement. Now nested if statement allows us to nest if statement inside another if statement. Okay, it doesn't actually mean that it's going to be only inside of this if statement or inside of this else if statement. You can actually nest it inside this else statement. So right now our code runs on this else statement. Let's run it again so that you see. You can see x is not less than 8. So this code is running. Now we can now go on and nest another if statement inside of this else statement. So we now check if 1 is equal to 1. Okay, so we are now checking again that if 1 is equal to 1. So if 1 is equal to 1, it should print out 1 equal to 1. So this is what I want it to print out. Okay, then else it should print 1 not equal to. Okay, so this is what I want it to check when it gets to this else statement. So we have nested another if statement inside this else statement. So this is called nested if statement. Now let's run this and see what will be printed out on the screen for us. So you can see here 1 equal to 1 and x is not less than 8. So what this does is that when it enters into this else statement, it goes to this first statement, check whether 1 is equal to 1. If it is true, which it will be true, it's going to print this for us. Okay, and jump this. You can see it did not print this for us. So it jumped this else statement. Why? Because this if statement is true. Remember what I said up here. This if statement, this evaluation here is supposed to be true for this to be printed out. Okay, but if it is false, it will go down to this else if. Okay, so if this else if is false, it will go down to this else, which right now 2 of these are false. Okay, so that is why it is inside, our code is running inside of this else right now. So let's make this false, this nested if statement inside of this else false. Let's see the code that is going to run. So you can see that 1 not equal 1. So this ran. Why? Because this is false. This returned false. That is why the else ran. Okay, so that is how to nest your if statement. So you can even carry this nested if statement to your else if statement. So let's put it here. So you have nested this. Sorry for my formatting. So it's quite confusing on how to read this. So let's run this. But for this to run, for this our nested if to run, this else if condition must be true. So let's make this to be true. Put x to be greater than 6. Why? Because 7 is x. So 7 is greater than 6. This our else if is going to run. So when it runs, it will print out x is greater than 6. Then it will check this condition. Then it will now print out whether it's true or false. Okay, so let's see it. So you can see x is greater than 6. Then 1 not equal 1. You can see that is this one that printed out. Why? Because this condition is false. But let's make it to be true. You can see 1 equal to 1 and x is greater than 6. You can see how to nest. You can even nest another if statement inside of this one. According to your algorithm, you can nest as so many if statements as you want. Okay, but just make it more make your algorithm simple, efficient, and okay, easy to read. Now the same thing can be done inside of the if statement also. We can also put this our code inside here, okay, inside of this if statement, and make this return true for this code to run. So that is how to do the nested if statement. The next one that we are going to go in is the switch statement. Stay tuned. As I said earlier, we are dealing with decision making statements. So we have looked at the if statement. We have also looked at the else if statement. We have also looked at the if else statement, and also looked at the nested if statement. The last but not the least is going to be the switch statement. Now the switch statement works in the same way as the else or the if statement does, but the syntax or the way in which it's being written is different. So follow along with me. For you to declare a switch condition, you have to type the keyword switch. At the front of it, you open brackets. Now here is going to hold the variable in which you are trying to evaluate, which is the x. Then you now put your Cura bracelet here. The inside of this, there is something we call case. Now this case is going to hold the values in which you are comparing against this x. So let's do case 1, okay, and you put your column. Then you now want to print something out if x actually matches case 1. Okay, so when you print something out, so let's print 1. Let me delete this. Let's print 1. Then after that, you now break it. So remember, in the if statement, we did something like this: if condition, then these 2 brackets, and then we now come down and say else, then these 2 brackets. So this means is that whatever we put inside of this Cura bracelet doesn't we run, okay, but when it gets to this ending of this Cura bracelet, it will break out, it will stop, it will not continue to the else. Okay, so this says that whatever that is inside of this should only run. So whatever that is outside should not run. Okay, so the same thing with this switch statement. You can see the switch statement has this break. So whatever that is inside of this statement here is going to run. When it is done running, this will break it. It will not continue to the next case statement that we are still going to write. Okay, so let's copy this. Then let's put case 2. Okay, case 2. Then come here, put case 2 here. Then finally, let's put case 3 and 7. I mean to say case 7. So why? Because x is 7, so it needs to match something. But if it did not match anything, no problem. So here there is what we call default. Default in switch statement is just like the else statement. Okay, so and this cases are just like if statement and else if statement. So this default is acting like the else statement. So then we have now said no match. What this is actually telling us is that it's passing this value 7 inside of this switch statement. So it's now saying, does this first case match this x? It said no, it doesn't match. Why? Because this value 1 is not same as x, which is 7. So the same thing it will do to case 2. It doesn't match, it will jump it. Then it now gets to case 3, case 7, which is this 7. So you say, okay, yeah, the value I have here is 7, and the value that was given to me here is 7. Then it will now print 7 for us. And when it prints, it will stop, it will break, and it will end. So let's see what we have done. So you can see here that it printed 7 for us. Okay, let me remove this exclamation mark here. Where is it? Okay, this is it. Let me remove it then. So you can see it printed 7 for us. Why? Because it got a match. So this returned true. That is why it printed this guy for us. And when it printed this guy, it breaks. Okay, so let us remove this break and see what will happen. So we have removed the break, we save, and then we rerun. So you can see it printed out 7 and then printed out no match. Why is it so? Why? Because we have 7 already here, so there should be a match. Okay, 7 is here and 7 is here, so there should be a match, which is this. So it should have stopped here, but it went down to print no match. So you can see the importance of this break. Okay, so when we now add this break back, print it back again, you can see it printed 7 and then stopped there. Now let us now go and change this to, let's change this to 71. So that means there's no match. There's no match in our case. This is 1, this is 2, this is 71. So there's no case or value that is 7. So let's run this and see what it will print. So you can see it printed no match. This is the else statement for switch statement. Okay. Now let us now go to this first one, put 7, then remove the break statement. Remove this one break statement. I want to teach you the importance of break statement. Then remove this break statement. Then run this. You can see it's printed everything here, which is not what we want. So we just want it to get the correct value and print it on the screen for us. But we ended up getting the wrong values plus the right value. So that is not how our program should run. So logically, this is called a runtime error. So yeah, runtime error, because the results in which we are trying to get is not what we are getting. Okay, so and also is a syntax error because we need a break statement in our each of our case. Okay, so let me put them back so that we can repair the errors. Then we now print it out, so you can see it has printed 1, only 1. Why? Because 7 was matched to 8, so it printed out this. That is much we can take on this decision making statements. If you have any questions, just drop it in the comment box. Okay, and if you like this video, subscribe, like and share.